So first of all, happy Passover, happy Pesach to everybody. It's great to see some friends and maybe meet some new friends that I haven't met before. And I'm excited to, I'm not going to talk, I don't want to talk about the situation. That's not what we're here for. We've all talked about it enough. I'm happy to talk about it, but not now. Now we're going to talk about something that is such a wonderful opportunity that we're given by our wonderful tradition of in the Torah and Judaism and Jewish history, and it's a mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah to do this thing called counting the Omer that, frankly, we've lost touch with it over the centuries. And there's no reason for that. We can get back in touch with it. And thanks to Suzanne, I want to express my appreciation to her for suggesting and encouraging and enabling this discussion today, because she's found it meaningful in her own personal life, and she wanted to enable others to find meaning in it as well. And I think that's wonderful. I personally try to do this. Now, what is it all about? Well, first of all, it just says in the Torah, there's a verse in the Torah that says, count the days and weeks from after Passover, 7 weeks until the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot. Now that's a very telling, just the name itself of that holiday is revealing something to us that should cause us to pause and think, because Shavuot literally means weeks. It's a funny name for a holiday. We have a holiday called weeks. Now, the only weeks that I can think that it might be referring to would be the weeks that we're counting from Passover until that holiday. So there's something about the time period between Passover and this holiday that has some significance. And if we don't do something during those days, which is right now, then we might be missing out on something very profound. In fact, the profundity is so great that it's going to be hard for me to give it overall to you in this one session. I'm going to give you a few outlines, a few tastes of it. And if there's interest, we can continue beyond today. But we'll try a little bit, give you a taste of what this is all about, and then the specifics of the mitzvah. The big picture is, as you know, probably the most significant number in the Torah is what number? The number we see the most of is the number 7, right? We see 7 throughout the Torah. We see 7 days of creation. We see 7 weeks in the Shabbat, 7 days in the Shabbat, 7 years of the Shemitah cycle, the agricultural cycle, and holidays have 7 days. Passover has 7 days, and Sukkot has 7 days. But actually, Passover doesn't have 7 days. It actually has 8 days. And I'm not talking about the 8th day of Passover in America that some people celebrate. I'm talking about 8 days even for people living in Israel. And I'm not sure what that other noise is. I can't, there we go. Mute one other person. There we go. The number 7 is a symbolic, we learn from the story of creation, of this physical world we live in. And I often use my little cube as a I don't see it right now, it's moved away from me. Imagine a cube as a 3-dimensional object, has 6 sides. And when you take those 6 sides and bring them together, that unity of the 6 dimensions, meaning the 3 dimensions in 2 ways, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, when you bring them together, that unity is the 7. The idea of the Shabbat is the unifying day of the week. 7 represents the unity of creation. There's 7s throughout creation. There's 7 orders in biology of animals, from kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and subspecies. There's in classifying minerals and classifying plants. There's 7 types of primary types of stars that astronomers have identified. They weren't trying to make 7, just it comes out that there's basically 7 classes of stars. There's 7 notes on a major scale. There's 7 colors in a rainbow. There's so many 7s. The universe is built on 7. So when you have, therefore, if 7 represents this world, then 1 beyond that, the 8 is, 1 beyond that. 8 is the transcendence. And that's interesting that 8 sideways represents, as you know, infinity. So that's the significance of 7. And so Passover and Sukkot both have 7 days, but they also have an 8th day. Sukkot, the 7th day of Sukkot, end with a holiday called, do you know what the name of the holiday is? What's the day, the 8th day of Sukkot called? It's called Shmini Atzeret, meaning the 8th day. It's called the 8th day. And exactly 6 months later, on the lunar calendar, 6 moons later, is Passover. And it also has 7 days followed by an 8th day. But the 8th day of Passover, that day of transcendence, is put off for 7 weeks. So Shavuot is best understood. The reason it's called Shavuot because it is connected totally to Passover. Passover doesn't conclude when you, tomorrow, in the next 2 days from now, when you put away the matzah and take out the challah again. Passover concludes at Shavuot on that 8th day. And it takes us 7 weeks to get there. And you could ignore it and go off about your business and maybe do something in Shavuot or not. But if you want to, it's an opportunity to use this time for something very profound, to take that beginning message of Passover and build on it till you get to Shavuot, whatever it represents. That's the background to Sefirat HaOmer. Sefirat HaOmer is the counting. Sefira literally means counting. Sefira, Sefir, l'saper. So you have mispar, means a number, but you also have l'saper, which means to tell. Like we'd say in English, an account can be a story, right? So it has a double meaning. And then there's another related word, which is Sefirot, which we'll talk about in a moment. If you're taking notes, you might want to highlight Sefirot, as we're going to get to it, Sefirot, in a moment. Now the reason why these numbers are so significant and what they relate to Passover is in a couple ways. If you think about the Passover story we all told last week, there are a bunch of elements of it, right? And again, this is way more than we can talk about in an hour, but I'm going to focus on one element of it, which is the 10 plagues. The 10 plagues are for sure a high point of the whole Seder. They're so dramatic, and there's so much about each one. Why 10? I just told you that the 7's this special number. Why don't we have 7 plagues? Why are there 10 plagues? The answer is, even though 7's an important number, 7's actually only important in relationship to the number 10. The true number is 10. And it's no random accident that we have 10 fingers, most of us. The world's actually, I said it's built on 7. In a higher sense, it's built on 10. Jewish tradition in the Talmud and other places says that if you read the Torah carefully, you'll see that while there are 7 primordial days of creation, when God actually speaks, says, let there be light, let there be land, all these statements, there's 10 of those. There's 10 statements that God uses to create the world. 10 utterances. And in other words, while the world itself is built on 7, to get from here to God, so to speak, there's a ladder of 10 rungs. We can only experience normally 7 of those rungs. The top 3 are beyond most people's ability to climb, which is okay. We can still learn about them, and then we can still access them in certain ways. But in everyday life, we're confined to the 7. We're confined to the 7 because we're in this world. We are creatures in the world. We're not angels. And so therefore we're confined to work within the 7 that are the lower 7 of those 10. Which is exactly why, now maybe you've figured out why there's exactly 10 plagues. Because the plagues are sort of undoing creation. They're showing the Egyptians and the Jews and everybody, God's actually in control from top to bottom, every aspect of creation, life itself. That's why the final plague is the death of the firstborn. From the lowest of the river to the ground, to the sky, up to life itself. And so the 10 reveals that, which is the same 10 of creation. And you'll see that throughout the other 10s as well. They represent the same idea. So here we are in Egypt. So the story starts with Egypt. We're in Egypt. We're in this place called Egypt. Now, how do you say Egypt in Hebrew? You probably know. I should actually, make this interactive. I don't want to have, the audio doesn't work so well when they have a lot of people talking at the same time. But I could have everybody type your answer on the chat. You can type your answer. If I was doing this in a school, I'd say, okay, everybody type your answer or write it on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera to let us see your answer. I'll give you Egypt in Hebrew starts with an M. Do you remember how to say it? Pause. Rochelle's writing it. No, she's not. She's doing else. Okay. It's Mitzrayim.
I'm writing notes. Sorry.
Okay. It's okay. Mitzrayim. Now, that's a terribly significant word. It's even in modern Hebrew, it's called Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, if you know a little bit of Hebrew, anyone who's raised speaking Hebrew will know that it has the root of tsar, sadi resh, but there's a related word I'll put with a small m, mitzrim. Mitzrim are borders. Tsar means like a narrow space, and mitzrim are borders. The whole name Mitzrayim for Egypt alludes to it being a closed, bound place. There's an ancient legend that no slave ever escaped from Egypt. It was like, the highest pre-Trump security walls, you can imagine, electric. I don't know if what they had to, but no, whether or not it's true doesn't matter. It just represents this idea that Egypt represents being bound. Now, there's nothing more confining in this world. You know what the greatest prison in the world is? What's the greatest prison in the world that no one ever got out of alive? Do you know what it is? Your body, our bodies. No one ever got out of their body alive. We're trapped in our bodies as long as we're in this world. And so it's symbolic of the physical. In Mitzrayim, Egypt, is symbolic of the physical that traps us. We're trapped. We have to eat. We have to sleep. We have to go to the bathroom. So many physical things. I want to be a spiritual person, but I've got all this physicality that starts trapping me. I gotta go earn money, and I gotta go clean the dishes, and there's so much physicality that can make a person trapped. But you can escape it, and we learn from the Seder. You know how you escape it? You have to leave in a hurry. You have to. It says in the Haggadah, and it says in the Torah in Exodus that even before they left, the night before they left Egypt, and this is what I spoke about last week in the Passover class, which was recorded, they ate it in a spirit of haste. Like the idea that to be not trapped by Mitzrayim, to get out of your Mitzrayim, you got to have some kind of sense of haste. So we also have to have unleavened bread, because the bread, when it gets leavened, represents materialism when it rises, and we want to keep it thin and just minimize it, okay? Now we ate the matzah, we had our Seder, and now what? What do we do to start climbing those 7 rungs to the highest point we can get to, the top of the 7 of that ladder? So just peek into that 8th day, that 8th rung after 7 weeks. What do we do? How do we do that? Well, the good news is we have a roadmap, and that's given to us by our tradition and it's written in the Torah, counting. counting means not just, I took it off the board, not just counting numerically, but as mispar, but to lissaper, to tell, to talk about, think about meaning behind the counting of this. Now, in tradition, I'm going to do a screen share right now, and I'm going to show you the 7 levels of these 7 rungs. And you can write them down, or I can email them to you, make them available to you. Share screen, and I'm going to share this one, right? Where is it? Oh, there, Microsoft Word document. There it is. Okay, go ahead, share. Okay, sharing. Are you seeing? I can't see which one you're seeing. Are you? I hope you're seeing the right one, which is. Came off my. It's not showing me now which one you're seeing. Okay, if you're seeing the right one, you're seeing the one. This one here that says Sefirot, and there's 7 levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I highlighted number 1, Chesed. I'll define those in a moment. But even though I wrote them, first on top, we're counting up, so to speak. We're trying to count up to get to the top. So, but the first one is Chesed. And here is definitions of those 7. I hope that came through. Let's try again, make sure you're seeing what I want you to see, which is the 7 defined. Okay, desktop, iPhone, Microsoft Word, document. No, I don't want you to see that one. I want you to see this one, Sefirat document. Okay, it's not letting me share it. I don't know if you're seeing it or not. Try one more time. Microsoft Word. Oh, there it is. That's the one you want to see. Okay. Okay. There's your 7. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing that. This is the list. Chesed being number 1, and this is the list with definitions. So you can see that each one has, and I left it abbreviated on purpose so we can explain them each. This is just for you to take some notes, and then hopefully we'll explain each one as we go through. Each week is associated with one of these successive. We're in the week of Chesed, kindness. Now, there's a double mitzvah here. The double mitzvah that is counting both days and weeks. If you count days and weeks, you end up with how many total? Well, there's 7 days in a week and 7 weeks. You have 7 times 7, you have 49. And each of these 7 is then broken into 7 subcategories. So you have Chesed, and then you have Chesed of Chesed, then you have Gevura of Chesed, then you have Tiferet of Chesed, then you have Netzach of Chesed, then you have Hod of Chesed, you have a Yesod of Chesed, and then Malchut of Chesed. So Chesed has 7 aspects for those 7 days of that week, and then likewise for each one. And if I want to climb those 7 rungs of those 7 weeks towards that 8 of Passover, then what I want to do is try to meditate on, internalize as many of those 7 aspects of each week as I can. So now, since we're in the middle of the first week, what I'd like to do is then talk about Chesed in terms of those 7 aspects, and suggest some ways that, first understanding, and then hopefully some ways in which we can use this wisdom to climb that ladder and achieve our real potential. What is our real potential? What are we supposed to be achieving? What are we here for anyway? Like, why are we doing this? What is the reason we're here? I just saw a note from Suzanne that there's going to be other presenters in the next week. So I'm just on this week. So hopefully this will give you a roadmap for this week that will now allow the later speakers in other weeks to build on this roadmap. So what is the purpose? Why are we here? What are we trying to achieve? Well, if you go back again to the whole beginning of the story in Genesis, it says why we're here. We're here to become, to the best of our ability, our potential, which is a B'Tselem Elohim. Do anybody know what that means? That means being in the image of God, being godly. That's what we're here for. It seems to say in the Torah that we're here to make ourselves, we have the potential, but it's not automatic. If you don't work on it, then what you are is you're a very smart animal. You're a behemoth, an animal. If you work on it, you can take that animal nature that we get from our bodies and lift it up and become more godly. And every year we have a chance to get better and better at this. So let's talk now about chesed, about this first of the 7, and its 7 aspects, like facets, that are subcategories of it. So the first one, as I said, it's chesed itself. It's the chesed of chesed. What does that mean, the chesed of chesed? Chesed literally means kindness, but that word itself has multiple ways of understanding it. What is kindness? Well, kindness, if I give you $1 and you give me a sandwich, did I do a kindness for you? Did you do a kindness for me? Was a kindness done at that moment? We usually understand chesed to be where I've done something for somebody, not necessarily to get something back. That's an exchange. It's a good thing to do too, but chesed means I'm doing it without looking at myself. What am I going to get out of this? I'm doing it thinking about the other person. What do they need? Not because I'll get something for it, not whether it's money or appreciation, anything. It's just that I want to help them in some way. So chesed of chesed, the subcategory of chesed, the chesed of chesed, we'll put that as a subcategory. The chesed of chesed is like absolutely pure empathy. Not just, I know what you feel, but I just feel so bad it could be someone I never met and never will meet. But that feeling of, I'm focusing totally on them. And it's something we can cultivate. We can cultivate every day, trying to really feel empathy for somebody that we don't always empathize with. That's something that can be actuated as well. We'll talk about the actualization of it in a moment. But I'm talking about just the purest chesed. The chesed of chesed is where I just really am thinking about another person. And it's something worth thinking about. Some of us have a lot more time. Some of us with small children have less time than usual. But if you have more time on your hands than you usually do, it's an opportunity to think, am I really empathizing with people? Are my relationships, I'm not even asking about all your relationships, but are enough of your relationships about really feeling what that other person needs? Are enough of them about that? So many of our relationships are transactional. I'll do for you because you're going to do for me. And those are important. We have to have those relationships. But even within such a relationship, can we also practice this? I'm talking about emotionally right now. I'm not even talking about action. So that's something to work on during this week. Now let's move on to the next. The next category of chesed is, if you're taking notes, you remember from my screen share, gevura. Now, gevura literally is from the word gibur, strong. It means strength. So, what does that mean, strength? What does it mean, strength? Well, it can mean actualizing that feeling. I'm not simply going to feel empathy. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to use my strength that I have to express my chesed. And I can ask myself, I feel bad for certain people, but I feel good for them. It's not always feeling bad for somebody. Empathy can also be feeling good for somebody. Am I doing anything about it? What can I do for somebody who's stuck at home? There's tons of things I can do for them. What can I do for somebody who has a good news? I can write them an email, say, Mazel Tov. I can do something about it to show my caring. That's one aspect of gevura. Am I really doing enough of that? Have I done enough? Can I be better at that, at expressing chesed and not merely feeling it, that empathy for another? But there's also another aspect to gevura, which is limiting that chesed. Because if you think about it, maybe you disagree with me, but I believe, and I think the Torah teaches us, that helping somebody is not always giving to them. Sometimes withholding is better for them. You know, there's no mitzvah to give a booze to an alcoholic, drugs to a drug addict. There's no mitzvah, just because they ask for it. You're not helping them, you're hurting them. So sometimes limiting my giving is actually better giving. It's better chesed if I limit it. So gevura also, besides when I actualize it, also is a quality of control of that chesed, so that it's not too much. These two aspects of chesed are illustrated in this book of Genesis by the two primary patriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, where he is portrayed as the embodiment of chesed, and she is as well, but she's portrayed as the embodiment of the gevura of chesed. She's the one actually teaches him how to limit his chesed so it doesn't become harmful. This is why they are the foremost of the avot. Avot literally means fathers, but it that's sort of like the metaphorical level. And the meaning of it is they're the roots, the foundation, the founders of the Jewish people. Avram and Sarah. Both of them practiced chesed. Unbridled was his and hers was controlled. And together they are the foundation, the two first steps. Now the third step on our list is tiferet. Tiferet. How did I define tiferet on the document? Put it back on the screen for a moment. Tiferet. You know, tiferet is simplest meaning means beauty. Well, how does chesed how is it beautiful? I think you could probably answer this question on your own, but I'll tell you my opinion. The most beautiful part of a person, everyone in the world, is their smile. I've never met somebody with an ugly smile, ever. Everybody's smile is beautiful. We all have this beauty about us that we sometimes choose to give to others, but not always. And what a gift you can give to somebody, so that when you're greeting somebody, when you're shopping and buying groceries, when you pass a stranger in the street, whatever chesed you're doing, you say hello, do it with a smile. When you give tzedakah, do it with a smile. That beautifies the whole thing. The same amount of money is given in tzedakah with or without the smile. So the mitzvah, so to speak, is still accomplished whether or not I did it with the tiferet. But it's so much greater when I do it with a smile. The whole thing is uplifted to a higher level. Tiferet can also refer to harmony. And some teach tiferet as a harmony between the chesed and the gevura. I get that balance. So this is something to work on. I would just recommend, I just think, I walk around here in Baltimore, San Francisco, the place I go, I see a lot of, before the shutdown, even during the shutdown, I still go out for walks. I still see a lot of frowns, or people are not smiling. And there's a famous rabbi from the 19th century, Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, who used to quote it as saying, "Your face is public property." You know, you have no right to show me a sourpuss face. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to look at your face. I do. So let me see a smile, especially because you have such a nice smile. So that's Tiferet. That's my suggestion for Tiferet. Try to greet everybody with a smile. Try everybody. Like, see if you can spend a whole day where every single person you encounter for that day you greet with a smile. Try it. See how it affects you, affects your life, the world. I mean, I say a whole day. I'd like it to be every day, but try even for an hour. Okay? Let's do number 4. What's number 4? Netzach. Now, Netzach, I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to write them down, so I'll just quickly put it on the screen again so you can review what it says. Netzach literally means eternity. How does chesed become eternity? It seems to me a chesed, my acting with chesed becomes eternity when I'm doing it for future generations and not just for myself, not just for the present generation, not just for my own family, kids, neighbors, but when I try to do something for the world that will far outlive me, even my own family. There's a story in the Talmud of a rabbi named Choni Hamago. Choni. And he saw a man planting a carob tree. And he said to this man, he was very critical of him. He said, "What are you bothering planting a carob tree for? They don't bear fruit for like 70 years. Like this, they take forever." That was his criticism of the man. The man responded, "I'm not planting for me. I'm planting for my grandchildren and beyond." Choni was, the Talmud goes on to say he was punished for that criticism. It's a longer story, but the Talmud is teaching us a value there of the netzach of chesed. Practice chesed not just for the now, but also for the future. And I would challenge you, and myself as well, am I doing chesed for the world that will outlast me? Not maybe outlast me, well, because I don't know how long I'll live. Even if I live a long life, which I hope I will, that it'll outlast me. Something to think about, a legacy of kindness to the world. The next one on our list, go back to the list briefly, is Hod, splendor. Yeah, it's probably a good word. I don't even know what splendor means. You know what splendor means? What is splendor? What exactly is splendor? It almost sounds like beauty. Most of these, Tiferet and Hod, by the way, are used by modern Israelis for children's names. I know a couple Tiferets. I know at least one Hod. I'm not just modern Israelis, Jews. More common in Israel maybe than elsewhere. So Hod is a very nice word. It has something to do with beauty. It's actually related to a Hebrew word which you all, I dare say, know. And that word is Todah. What does Todah mean? Go ahead, I can read your lips. What's Todah mean? Thank you. Todah means thank you. The idea of the splendor of chesed is that there should be appreciation by those who receive chesed. There should be an expression. The real splendor. I'll give you an example. I went during this lockdown, I have 6 or 7 elderly Jews on our street for whom it's very dangerous to go anywhere. They're the highest risk category. And I know these Jews, well, I don't know them that well, but I know them well enough that I suspected they would really feel bad that they can't get certain things for Shabbat. that they won't get. People, I'm sure they're getting food. I check when they're getting food. That's not the worry. I was worried about them getting flowers for their Shabbat table. So I went, and I couldn't go buy flowers. I didn't want to risk going buying flowers, but I have a neighbor with a tree with a full of flowers. I said to the neighbor, would you like to donate some flowers to my chesed for these old people? He said, sure. So I went and cut these flowers, and I did it with gloves and a mask, and I brought them to these folks, and I delivered them very safely, did everything safely. And usually when this happens, almost always, not always, half the time it's, the husband answers the door, and half the time the wife answers the door. And I gave them flowers. 3 of the wives that I did not see personally did something to go out of their way to thank me. And I didn't need them to. I would have been fine. But one of them called me up. One sent a gift for our kids, a toy for our kids to play with, and another sent something. I didn't need the thank you. But when I got the thank you, it made a stronger bond. It made the chesed. I didn't want the thank you. I really didn't. But it kind of made it feel more, more splendid. It was a real complete relationship. Not only when you thank somebody when they do a chesed for you, but when you enable them to thank you by saying, "Oh, you're welcome," by being a generous recipient of the thank you as well, not to shrug it off as some people do. Like, I don't want to be thanked. Don't say that. Let them thank you. If they want to thank you, that's a part of the chesed, is them being able to respond in some way to you. And it makes it a much more splendid chesed when the thank you is given and received so nicely. And something to work on. Obviously, when we're at home, we have by far the most opportunities for chesed right now are with our own. Those of us who are living with family is right at home with our family. I mean, I can be doing chesed every single day throughout the day for my family, and they for me. And I need to make sure, if I want to be making this chesed on the whole level, to be thanking them a lot more than I usually do for things they do. And if they're thanking me, to be generously accepting their thank you. This is true as well as all the good that God does for you in your life. Being thankful for that. The chesed that God. You don't need to have beauty in the world. You don't need. There's many things you don't need to have. You could, if a person was God forbid starving or sick, they could legitimately say, God, please heal me. You made me, so let me live. But if you're living and your life is not at risk, do you have a claim that you should be getting beauty, that you should be getting more comfort? Those are chesed that are done for you, and that's something to express thanks for. To be a person who creates the hod of chesed. The next level after hod is, go back to the screen share for a moment, is yesod, foundation. What does that mean? That's what it literally means. It means foundation. But what does that mean in terms of chesed? When something becomes foundational, if you think about it in English, it means it's like automatic. It's not something I have to even think about. It becomes almost, I don't want to use the word habitual because that has a negative connotation, but in a way it's habitual. That I just jump at it. I just jump at the opportunity to do a chesed. You need something fun, let me help you. The instinctive is maybe a better word than habitual. We can, I don't know about you, but I have a lazy bone in my body. Sometimes my wife or my kids need something, I don't want to get off the couch and just jump. Or someone knocks at the door and I feel I don't want to go answer the door. And I'd like to become the kind of person that for whom chesed is a yesod. It's a foundation of who I am. It's like Abraham in the tent, waiting at the doorway for, will anybody come by on this hot day and we can go serve them food? Like, just run to it. That's very fundamental to the idea of running out of Egypt, of leaving Mitzrayim in a hurry, of being that kind of person who's, I want to do chesed so much You have to cultivate it, though. It doesn't come automatically, especially for any of us who were once upon a time a teenager. We had that period in our lives where, you'd have to, wild horses couldn't drag you out of bed. And somehow some of us have relapses once in a while to that time. And this is an opportunity during this Sefira, in this 7 weeks. Right now, this week, we're in the week of Chesed. And today is actually technically day 5. So some people try to work on one of these per day. There's nothing wrong with having missed, but it's an opportunity still. You're still in the week 1 of Chesed to take these 7 aspects of Chesed and try to work on each one, cultivate each one. Try to find one aspect of Chesed, of each of these that you could, one practical thing you could do a little different. Like try to be a little faster at responding to someone who needs something. A little bit faster. If we all got just a little bit faster at that, wow, what a different world this would be. And then the 7th one, back to our screen share for a moment. The 7th one is the highest level of Chesed is Malchut. I'm gonna spend a couple minutes on Malchut, a couple more words about it, then we'll open up for some questions. Malchut. So go back. What is Malchut? Well, it means kingship. But what does that mean? If my Chesed is already at level 6, where it's basically spontaneous, instinctive, how can it get greater than that? Interesting, when you look at the Torah, including the Talmud, describes the laws of kings, and these are brought down in various books beyond the Talmud, like Maimonides' Mishnah Torah. One of the features of a king that strikes me as very relevant here is a king has the power of eminent domain. The king wants to build a highway through your backyard. King has the power to do that. There's nothing you can do to stop that. Meaning, Malchut, one of the defining characteristics of Malchut is it breaks barriers. It has the potential to break down barriers, to go beyond almost any barrier. What that says to me is, when I think about Chesed, is my Chesed by the book? Am I just following the textbook of Chesed, or am I being innovative? Am I being creative? Am I looking for new ways that no one ever did before? Am I ready to go knock down doors, and do whatever it takes? Some people give up they think there's nothing I can do. And we've all heard stories about the person who ignored convention and broke down doors and broke barriers. The Rosa Parks, who said, "I'm sitting on the bus. I'm sitting in the back of the bus. I'm sitting in the front of the bus. There's those innovators." And I was telling the story to my kids the other day. One of my children had learned the story of Rosa Parks and says, she wasn't trying to end segregation. She just wanted to sit in front of the bus. I said, that's the point. She wanted to sit in front of the bus, and she did. She did it because she wanted to sit in front of the bus, and she wasn't going to let anybody stop her. That's innovation. That's creativity. Before her, people, didn't know how to end segregation. She didn't analyze it. She didn't plan it. She didn't strategize it. She didn't organize it. She just did it. She just went, broke down the barrier. And we can do that with our Chesed too. You have to find the opportunity and use your creativity, and you use your intelligence and use your desire to do that Chesed. One last word I'll say before I turn off the mute is, when we're climbing towards Shavuot, these 7 weeks, what are we trying to achieve? What is Shavuot all about? So we have this holiday called weeks. But what does the holiday of Shavuot, what is it all about? As most of you know, Shavuot holiday is the holiday of the Torah. Shavuot is, in the story of the Exodus, is when the Jews are standing at Mount Sinai receiving the Torah. They're taking 7 weeks to prepare for this. And it's interesting that we call this whole mitzvah we're talking about counting the Omer. How it works is literally counting. And so my recommended practice is this. Every night, or maybe in the morning, but the Jewish days start at night. Tonight, after it gets dark, stand or sit in a meditative position and think, okay, I want to do the mitzvah of counting the Omer. So tonight will be 6. So have your notes from today available. Have your plan, your thought about what 6 represents, and the other previous 5. And think, okay, I want to do the mitzvah of counting the Omer. And say, today is the 6th day of the Omer. And then make a mental commitment to try to work on that day's aspect, and as well as the previous ones if you missed any days. And then when we get to day 7, the custom is to count weeks as well, because it really is about weeks, not days. It's 7 times 7. So we'll say today is 7 days, which is 1 week. And then we'll say today is 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day. Today is 9 days, which is we count both days and weeks. That's how the custom is. My recommendation is try to make it, I actually put it on my phone to remind myself, because it's easy to forget. I have an alarm ring at 8:15 every night that's just to remind myself to count the Omer. And there's apps for this, and you can, whatever reminders it takes. It's a wonderful practice. And then, but to make it a meaningful counting, that I want to work on this aspect of myself, some meaningful practice, so I can try to climb towards the day of the Torah. The day of the Torah, well, that will be another discussion of what that means, maybe with another rabbi, another time in the future. But the Torah is theoretically the embodiment of everything we aspire for in terms of becoming greater human beings in wisdom. And it is the 8th rung. It's beyond the 7 times 7. It's the 50th day. It's the 8 of Passover. It's that peeking into that higher realm of the divine that we can climb to. I guess everybody has the ability to unmute yourself. I didn't turn that off. So I just noticed some chats from people, very nice comments from Rochelle and Talia, Sharon, Suzanne, private to me. Oh, Suzanne, you made a very interesting comment private to me. I wonder if you want to say it to the group or not. Anybody? Questions, thoughts, comments? Do you know how to unmute yourself? Do you want me to unmute everybody? I think you can do it. Allow participants to... Oh, I didn't allow you to. Here, I just didn't. Sorry. Now you're allowed to unmute yourself if you were not before. Sorry about that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
During Shabbat of the 7 weeks, is there a special prayer or a different prayer?
Same. It's the same. It's a separate mitzvah from Shabbat and everything else. I am ready to do the mitzvah of counting, and you count and try to contemplate the meaning of that day and week's counting.
The things I was saying, it's Suzanne. One of the things I was saying, first of all, thank you. This was such a good class. So thank you. Everyone will continue for the rest of the weeks. But the comment I was going to make that I wrote to you was for Malchut is not taking advantage of the love that you can give a person or take from a person. That was my comment that Seinfeld was referring to.
What do you mean by not taking advantage?
Well, like you talked about in terms of not loving in a way that takes advantage of a vulnerability or something in another person or as a community, not taking advantage of the community at that level. Knowing the limits that a community or a person can endure, and
Right.
not over loving if that's actually a thing.
I think I love the idea. I want to ask you just articulate how that's a part of malchut.
One second, I'm going back to my notes.
Oh, by the way, while Suzanne's doing that, I wanted to share with you. She had told me that she had been particularly inspired by a specific book, which I'm trying to share with you right now. Is it coming on the screen?
Yes.
Can you see? I made a link to it, so if you're interested in the book, it's like $10, and it has suggested. It's like a guide to each of the 49 days of the Omer, which so I made this easy to remember URL for you that you could use.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a book I've been using I think the book is around 30 to 40 years old, to be quite honest, but the app is relatively new, and it's my first year using the app. And for me, while I think that the app is a definite enhancement, it's a tool and a great reminder, as I said, it has notification that's reminding me. It's the right kind of class depth of content that is needed. Someone that has studied the Omer for, the counting of the Omer for my whole life. I mean, since I was in kindergarten.
It's great to have books. You have a discussion, then it can fade from memory pretty quickly. It's good to have some kind of guidebook. Other comments or thoughts? Questions? What's bothering you? You have to unmute yourself. Well, as I mentioned, I am recording my video, not yours, and audio. And I'll, if you like to get a link to, it's going to be too big to email, but I'll put it on a Dropbox folder and share with anybody who would like, audio and video, and I'm happy to send it to you. Let me know. And I want to end with a blessing and a hope that each one of us succeeds at climbing our ladder, our individual ladder out of Egypt and onward to Sinai, and climbing in holiness and climbing in goodness and righteousness, and hopefully I can say with real meaning next year in Jerusalem. And I want to wish everybody a very happy last couple of days of Pesach. Chag Sameach.